Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Udis, in this series on the network of global corporate control. Today's show is pre-recorded and is called What is Happening with the Global Currency Reset? Thanks, as always, to Carmen Stanley, studio producer and director, Mo Jackson, audio and teleprompter, and Cruchet Starnes. He's also working on the teleprompter. We're going to be kicking the tires on the global currency reset. Tires on early automobiles were made of thin rubber and were sometimes of poor quality. Hence, a prospective buyer might kick the tires to see how thick they were or if they would deflate. First, let's answer the question, why do we need to have a global currency reset? Last week's segment answered this question. You can review the last year and a half of this series on YouTube. We need the global currency reset because the existing money system is corrupt and is unstable and on the edge of failing. The central banks are private corporations and they're creating our money and charging us interest on country debt. This is a scam. There's a lot more to say on this question, and we'll come back to this fundamental question in a video clip at the end of this segment. The segments on the military, gold, and secret societies were uploaded on archive.org. This is because YouTube is owned by Google, and Google was created by the CIA. The information on the global currency reset and exposure of all the corruption in the existing international monetary system has been spreading on the internet. I made the point when the series began that you would be able to judge our progress by the trust that people are placing in the media. An American Press Institute survey showed 6 months ago that only 7% of American viewers trust mainstream media, and a recent Gallup poll shows a majority does not trust the media. This is especially true for the younger readers. Harold Lasswell, who was said to be the most original and productive sociologist and political scientist of his time, wanted to know who was in charge of the media and came up with a control analysis to find out. So he asked, who owns this paper? What are their aims? What are their political allegiances? Do they attempt to set the editorial policy? Does the fact that they're a Republican account for the newspaper's repeated attacks on the royal family? Are they subject to any kind of legal constraints? How does the editor decide what to put in the paper? One of the viewers on YouTube was asking me on just this point. His name is Michael Martinelli, and he asked, is the Public Access Corporation of DC, the facilities you're using to make these videos, part of the network of global corporate control? And my response was, when the law for cable TV was passed in 1972, the citizens fought very hard and won the right to allow the public to tell their stories alongside the cable TV companies. One of the concerns that people have is that my information is in English, and this is hard for those people who speak other languages to learn what's happening. A Mexican viewer showed me how to use subtitles and closed captions for Spanish, and this option is available for most other languages. But actually, I was very disappointed in what happened after a radio interview that I had in Dutch on September 15th in a station that was called Finding Voices. The moderator was Jeroen Gijs, and there were 4 other commentators, and I stumbled on a broadcast of theirs which totally misrepresented my positions without their bothering to tell me that they were going to put up a separate show dealing with the previous broadcast that I had made for them. And when I wrote to Jeroen Gijs Asking him why he had done this, I never got any answers. So, of course, this only confuses matters when I tried to contact the Dutch Minister of Finance, Meneer Dijsselbloem, who's on the development committee of 24 ministers that are concerned with the global currency reset. And these ministers meet in between the 6-month meetings of the rest of the ministers of finance. There are a total of 189 ministers of finance and development on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF. It's the coalition for the rule of law that was predicted by the power transition model that came to the World Bank from the National War College in 2004 that's in charge of the world's wealth. The lessons are easy to draw. Don't let the so-called experts have free rein. We have already exposed the legal, journalism, and accounting professions. The alternative media, most of it, is no better than the mainstream media. So whenever you get any information, you have to check into the sources firsthand. Now, the power transition model that we've been talking about is 90 to 95% accurate. It uses game theory to simulate how coalitions form after experts estimate how stakeholders are positioned on a given issue, how important that issue is to them, and how powerful they are. I've been following this power transition model ever since I reported to the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations in 2006 that Germany's executive director on the board of the World Bank, Eckhard Deutscher, believed that the World Bank's board of executive directors were treated like mushrooms, kept in the dark and covered with fertilizer. The power transition model predicted that the United States was going to lose the gentleman's agreement to appoint the president of the World Bank. And this is an indicator for how the network of global corporate control is about to fail. The power transition model started predicting the global currency reset ever since Elaine Colville, who also worked for the World Bank, she worked for a group called the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, and I got our statements up on the United Kingdom Parliament website in 2011. This means that the corruption in the international monetary system and the world's wealth have come out of hiding. In the power transition model, which Jacek Kugler ran for me in 2007, I had not factored in the existence of the network of global corporate control or its control over the media, or the fact that the network of global corporate control is located in Switzerland. The power transition model was updated in 2 TED presentations that Mark Abdullahian and Jacek Kugler did. The Brexit vote is evidence that the network of global corporate control is no longer in control. So let me report back to you about what happened after the 2016 annual meeting of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. And you're going to hear conflicting things. Whom should you believe? First, you have to begin with my statement that the United States is in interregnum. That means that there's no legitimate government. There are many things that can't be accounted for, like the unexplained death of Justice Anton Scalia without the required autopsy in Texas, the declaration of a state of emergency, and the United States Congress suspending the Constitution of 1789 each year, Judge Merrick Garland's questionable record in my whistleblower retaliation case in the D.C. Circuit Court, the United States Judicial Conference's refusal to recognize the settlement of my case, and also there's another court case that I was talking about on August 6, 2016, which was brought by John Parks Trowbridge, Jr. And you can summarize this case very briefly. The federal judges are all lying. All United States Department of Justice attorneys and United States district judges and magistrate judges work for the same for-profit corporate employer, which is the District of Columbia Municipal Corporation. I fired Bertrand Badret after he tried to invalidate the global debt facility. None of the embassies in Washington, New York, or Tokyo have contradicted any of the statements which I have hand-delivered, tweeted, mailed, and faxed to them on World Bank letterhead, and in particular that I vote for the United States on the Board of Governors of the World Bank during this interregnum in the legitimate government of the United States. After I wrote to all the governors of the states and the state adjutants general about unauthorized UN troops in the United States, there was a shakeup in the National Guard, and that means that Brigadier General Michael Boback, who was the liaison to the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the National Guard, and two-star General Wayne Grigsby were both relieved of their commands, and the exchange of Federal Reserve notes under the global currency reset has not begun. However, the assets in the global debt facility are still there, and you can figure this out because of the repeated requests for me to facilitate their theft, and I declined to do this. There is documentary proof that these assets exist. 8 days after John F. Kennedy signed the Green-Hilton Agreement, that's when he was assassinated, Ronald Reagan also tried to access this gold for the United States. That's when John Hinckley shot him. And there are other assets, such as artworks. The courts have no jurisdiction over the assets in the global debt facility under the terms of the bilateral Mansfield Breakthrough Successor Agreement. The officials who are duty-bound to facilitate the global currency reset, including the General Counsel of the California Treasury, Mark Paxson. He's also on the board of the National Conference on Public Employee Retirement Systems. He has done nothing. My latest action as of this moment is to forward emails to the members of the BRICS and also to David Tong, who's the International Trade Council. He's the chairman of the ITC in Singapore. And I've also been in touch with the International Financial Institute here in Washington.
All around us are signs and symbols that are pronouncing detailed and distinct messages which can be heard if one is able to discern and decode what the signs and symbols are truly telling us. With one word and one symbol, we can begin to decipher a very profound yet disturbing message that is being sent to anyone who is concerned with the shaping of what has been called reality. The word that we will look at concerns the banking system and the main medium used in the energetic transactions of commerce. The term capital is by definition an asset that is available for use in the production of further assets. Capital is also synonymous with the word money, which is the asset that is either available or not available to produce more money. A capital letter is also one that is written in uppercase, which is why all business and commerce is dealt with in names spelled with all capital letters. That is a fundamental law of the sea, and if any bank should try and proceed with a transaction through something other than a business name that is spelled in all capital letters, they would be breaking this commercial law. The etymology of capital is derived from the Latin capitellum, for small head, top of a column, as linked with the diminutive Latin prefix capit and noun caput, meaning head, mind, judgment, source, chapter. Everything is a construct of the mind, which is the source of all matter, and everything else that matters. More needs to be discerned to understand the symbolism that is being presented. If we look at the English word cattle, it is shown to be derived from the Anglo-French châtel, meaning personal property, which was from the medieval Latin capitale, meaning property, capital crime. It is being symbolized through money that humans are seen as cattle or chattel property, whereby chattel are personal and movable possessions, with the term being synonymous with slave and bondsman. The external symbol that the banks of the world have used in reflection to this is the cattle corral waiting lines, whereby the customers are pushed through the queue to give or receive their mental payment, which is why the suffix of ment, which is short form for mental, is used at the end of pay, indicating once again that this is a mental construct. Once the timer reaches 0, one needs to remit their pay mental, seeing that timer spelled backwards is remit. That timer is reached at the end of one's life, which is what the symbol of the waiting queue is also pointing out, with the French queue being translated as stalk, stem, which is the stalk of our spine, where we are the prey that are being stalked. This is based on the cycle of regeneration, seeing that the English queue translates into the Italian word coda, and a coda in music is the closing section of a musical composition. Coda in Latin means tail, penis, since the end of the composition means that the chattel property are pushed through the stalk of the spine, because we are the phonetic stock being ushered through the queue that are sold in runs on the stock market. There are bank runs and cattle runs, formed from the capital head, which are the head of cattle. The links are always synonymous with each other because the symbols are intentional. This is where we reach the terminal of our existence, because this operation relies on insistence to keep the cycle flowing. A terminal is the station where passengers or goods are unloaded from various transport vehicles, and this includes all of us as passengers of this reality that are loaded and unloaded by the transport vehicles in the sea of space in the much larger game of commerce that is occurring, which basically no one has a clue is taking place all around us. The airports of the world love to use the cattle corral symbol as well, in reflection to this truth, and in adoration to the god of boundaries, which is shown in the related Latin word terminal, meaning god of boundaries, a festival celebrated on February 23rd. This is a celebration of the Saturn-Jupiter relationship, because by Jove, one either gets these concepts, or one does not.
That was a very interesting video. I wanted to say, first of all, that some of that pointing out there were things that I definitely did not agree with, including the fact that there's a push to make people think that the people that are responsible are actually not as senior as some of the others. So you'll hear a lot of people accusing the Rockefellers are certainly involved, but they're not at the very top. The ones that are at the very top, they're called pharaonic bloodlines. They go way back, and they're located in Switzerland. And there were also, at the very end of that clip, you'll see pictures of foreign space, outer space. The things that are going on are actually occurring right on Earth, and you should be concerned about those. Don't allow yourself to be distracted. And what you really want to do is you want to work together with people close to you and work through all of these issues and stay involved with them as we go forward. This is also because there's very powerful military technology that tries to influence people, and they do this through the electromagnetic sphere that vibrate at the same frequencies as the Earth. It's called extremely low frequencies. We've talked about this in some other programs. So you want to learn to think for yourself and to have other people help you with this. It's also for your own protection. And as you work through many of these issues, learn what we call critical thinking. That is, to think for yourself. Don't accept as true something which you haven't really taken much time to learn about. And certainly don't trust the experts. And the universities are also in cahoots. So you need to really get to the very bottom of things when you reason with things. I wanted to answer some of the questions that have been raised on YouTube. One of them was from Jenny Johnstone, and she asked me, as the gold is distributed, how would we know that those doing the handling of it within our countries are not crooks and will do right for humanity? That is the question. And the way that we're going to handle the currency reset is that it's not going to go through the banks and it's not going to go through the governments. It's going to be replacing the currencies. It's going to be exchanging the currencies. And we can put systems in place so that we're going to be dealing directly with the mints. And you can see how much gold goes to the mint and how much gold comes out of the mint. And obviously the people are going to be involved in double checking all of this. And this is not going to be a simple thing to set up the systems, because the accountants, that profession has not distinguished themselves any more than the legal profession or any of the other professions. So that is, it's going to be a challenge, but we have all the time in the world, actually, and we will take our time, and we will have to set up some kind of mechanism so that we are able to communicate with each other. The internet is obviously going to be part of the solution, and that's how it's going to. We're going to have to really start from scratch, and we're going to have to learn from diagnosing how all of the corruption has been present. I want to thank you for listening to another segment of the Network of Global Corporate Control. Hard proof of the assets that were placed in hiding at the end of World War II in the Global Debt Facility, which include the world's monetary gold reserves, other precious metals, gemstones, artworks, the Treaty of Versailles bonds that were issued by the Federal Reserve Bank in exchange for gold collected from the elites in the 1930s. It's hard to come by that evidence, but there is very concrete proof that we're living in a very corrupt monetary system. As people learn how they've been hoodwinked, the system has become untenable. Will we have a soft landing? Stay tuned until next week's segment.